Hello there, everybody.
Hey, welcome to the At Nerdvana Live. This is, what episode are we on now? 5 or 6?
6.
Holy business. We've done 6 of these in a row. It's a live weekly video call-in show. We're streaming via YouTube and Twitch. We're also available as an audio podcast, so if you want to check us out on iTunes or wherever you get such things, you can do that and listen to us on the way to work on Monday or whenever. I'm Randy Pitchford. I'm hosting again this week. This is Elisa.
Hello.
Elisa Melendez is the new media manager for Gearbox Software.
One of these days, we're going to talk about what that actually means.
Right? maybe this is the day.
Today's the day.
We are broadcasting live from At Nerdvana. We are in a booth that sits above the At Nerdvana Coffee Plus shop and the At Nerdvana Food Plus Spirits. It's a restaurant and bar that's video game themed with awesome food. And the coffee shop, of course, is board game themed. And they're great. And they're right here in Frisco, Texas. So if you are anywhere near the Dallas area, North Dallas, Frisco, Plano, any of those areas, come on, check us out at Nerdvana. After the show, I'm going to stick around and have dinner. And if you want to say hi, you're welcome to come up and meet me if you happen to be in the area. And I'm probably going to get the pork chop.
Ooh.
Because I've been looking at that on the menu. I saw someone else order and it was freaking mad. It looked like a Fred Flintstone kind of thing because the bones were sticking up in the air and it was like, it was pretty rad. It looked like a Bronto burger at, with Fred Flintstone. But it's great and we'll be around and let's see. So we've got the ability to call in. We want to talk to you. This is a live show. That means anything can happen. So also there's a new Discord channel. So if you're on the interwebs and you don't want to use your phone to dial in a phone number like the old people do, you can use the internet and use Discord to communicate with us, and we'll get you on the air. And we've got little screeners that'll Joe will take your call or your Discord connect and say, hey, what's up? And it'll give us a little bit of information and we can talk to you. And today I'm hoping is that some people will want to call in and share ideas about video games that you wish we would make or somebody would make or things you wish we would do with our games. I want to hear what's on your mind. I'm curious. I love that kind of that conversation, and so I'm hoping that people that want to influence what we're doing want to call in and give us some clues about that. What do you think?
Maybe.
Think this will happen. So
somewhere, our legal team is probably just erupted into flames. But
it'll be fine. It'll be fine. It'll be fine if someone's everything works itself out. Everything works itself out. So let's see. I've been crazy busy.
Yeah,
I wasn't here last week. How did it go?
I think it went very well. We actually got a call from multiple people, all in the guise of the one Jim Ferranda.
Oh, okay.
So we got to hear from Isaac, Oscar, Mike,
voice actor.
Minrek. It was amazing.
Yeah. That's cool.
Yeah, it was really cool. We talked a lot about narrative and character design and how writing influences character and vice versa and all that.
That's
super
awesome.
Fun stuff.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I saw, speaking of characters, I saw the new Ready Player One trailer.
Yes!
That just came out, and another Gearbox character is in the trailer. El Dragon from Battleborn was an avatar in the Oasis. So somebody wants to be El Dragon when they're in the virtual reality of the Oasis in the fictional world of Ready Player One, which is Steven Spielberg's film adaptation of Ernie Cline's awesome fiction novel. If you haven't had a chance to read Ernie Cline's book, check it out. Ernie Cline is just like us. He likes all things nerddom, video games, cool nerd stuff. He drives a DeLorean that's been tricked out to be like Back to the Future.
What?
You didn't know that?
That's awesome.
Yeah, and he's got a flux capacitor and everything. And except if you open up the back and you pull out like in the hatchback in the back of the DeLorean, instead of what you'd expect to be in the back of a DeLorean, he's got some proton packs like it's like a Ghostbusters DeLorean. It's pretty bizarre, but it's real and it exists, and I've been in it, and it's really cool. So check out Ernie Klein's book Ready Player One, and check out the movie. And in the first teaser trailer for that, Duke Nukem made an appearance. And I have it on. My understanding is that other things that people are interested in will have cameos in the Ready Player One film.
I was gonna ask.
So it should be fun. So man, it's been busy for me though.
What have you been doing?
I haven't really had any chance to play video games, which is really. I played a little bit of Shadows of War last Saturday. That was really the last time I've had a good shot to play video games, and that's really frustrating because on Thursday was launched Hello Neighbor.
Yes.
I hope you guys are checking that out. Our friends at Tiny Build created this. Brought this awesome game. If you're not familiar with Hello Neighbor, the premise is someone has moved into the house next door. Mm-hmm. And it seems like they're doing some really creepy stuff in the basement. So, of course, you've got to break into their house and sneak down to the basement to find out what the hell they're doing, because that's what you do when you're not sure. You just break in.
Yep.
And of course, the neighbor doesn't want you to be doing this. So it's a cat and mouse game, and the neighbor has some pretty cool AI, and you've got to use the environment to kind of trick the neighbor into going this way while you go that way, and it's really fun. But I haven't played through the retail game yet.
No.
I'm looking forward to it. And if you want a physical copy of that game, like from Best Buy or Walmart or GameStop or Amazon or wherever it is you shop, that is possible because Tiny Build trusted Gearbox Publishing to bring that title to the public. So that's pretty cool. And I'm looking forward to playing the retail game. I played some earlier builds of it that were really, really interesting. That game's got something to it for sure. Have you tried it yet?
I have not tried it yet, but I hear it is a phenomenon. I'm super, super excited to try it out.
Right on. In other news, Christy, my wife, who happens to own at Nerdvana and lets us use this cool booth here, she finished Assassin's Creed Origins.
Whoa!
So that was possible.
Define finished.
Yeah, she hasn't 100%ed it. She just completed the storyline. So she's kind of debating right now whether she goes back and does the full completionist thing or if she jumps onto some other games. Because the queue's pretty big right now. There's a lot of great stuff out there, and we're all burning through it. But yeah, my weeks. So I spent most of the work week just in full-on crunch mode. We just an amazing work week at Gearbox. But on, let's see, Sunday and Monday I was out of town, and yesterday I was out of town, and it's been basically magic life for me. So that's been pretty cool. Is anybody, if anybody on here is from Cleveland, Ohio, I was up in you just a few days ago. It was David Blaine, who is a magician, was touring, and he's done a lot of television shows, a lot of television specials, some amazing work in magic and also endurance and stunts. And but he's never done a tour with stage, on stage. He's never done that before. It's like 25 years, and he's never done the stage tour thing. So he finally put a show together, working with some incredible magicians, some people we know, and David was very kind, and he came to the Genie Convention. Some people know that I own a magazine called Genie Magazine, which is the oldest magazine for magicians. If you have any interest in learning the arcane arts or becoming a magician, or if you are a magician, check out geniemagazine.com or genieonline.com, and you can subscribe to Genie Magazine and get all kinds of great stuff. But anyway, we have a convention, and Richard Kaufman, the editor of the magazine, put together this incredible program. And he managed to get David Blaine to agree to come, and he did 90 minutes of inside baseball, basically talking about his material and the things he's learned along the way.
That's awesome.
And I promised him that I would go and check out his show before the tour ended. And he has played really interesting venues. David did not go to any of the big cities. He played I think Boise, Idaho, and nothing wrong with Boise, but it's not one of the bigger, venues in the world. And he played El Paso, Texas, things like that. And I think it was the second to last show, and it was in Cleveland, and that was the only one I could make. And the only reason why that show existed is because during the tour, something went down where he had to cancel. He had 4 stops in Ohio, and he had to cancel those. And he promised he would come back and do them, so he picked them up and he did them. And so that's when I was able to get up there and get to see the show, and I'm really glad I did. David's a great magician. But it was the coolest. I've never seen a magic show like it. Usually a magic show is very scripted, and they do dumb magician-y crap, girls in boxes and stuff. And David's show was super raw, very extemporaneous. There's no music really. I mean, there's just a little bit. It was just him on stage, and there was a lot of magic in it, but there was also a lot of endurance tests, and he put a lot of himself into the show, and it was insane. I'll just say this: the opener, he says, "Would you like to see the needle and thread trick, or the card trick?" And he gets a bunch of responses. This is okay. Can we bring out the medical table? And somebody wheels out this stainless steel table with these instruments on it, and he says, "We're gonna do the needle and thread trick."
Okay.
And a needle is produced and examined by the spectator, so he has on stage, and he proceeds, and he has somebody hold a mirror so he can see himself very clearly in this mirror, and he pinches his lips with the needle. And he sews his damn mouth shut.
No.
Needle through the lips, sews his mouth shut.
Yeah.
There's a close-up cam on him. There's 2 spectators looking at it. It's real. He's sewing his damn mouth shut.
No.
It was great.
It's noping out.
And there's more to it than that, and an awesome punchline. It's not just look at me, I can sew my mouth shut. There's actually a bit to it, but I don't want to ruin it in case anybody does get a chance if he decides to do that tour again, which I'm not sure he can even do. The climax, he did this. He did this live special once where he attempted to break the world record for holding your breath underwater, and his folks had to pull him out at 7 minutes and 30 seconds.
Oh my gosh.
7 minutes and 30 seconds he was holding his breath
Wow.
in this tank of water, and he had to be pulled out, and this was live on television, and he did not break the record. Now, Houdini's record was 3 minutes and 30 seconds.
Wow.
And he did 7:08, 7 minutes and 8 seconds on the TV spot. And I got to watch him not only break that record, but break 10 minutes live. And that's something. So he's given a little bit of his brain cells every time he performs for us.
Clearly.
And I don't know how many he's got left, but it's pretty cool to watch. So that was something.
Yeah.
And then on Friday night, Thursday during the day, one of the things we did, I was able to take after the workday. At 6 p.m., our buddies Penn and Teller rolled into town because we're working on a VR project with Penn and Teller called Penn and Teller VR. Frankly, unkind, unfair, underhanded, and something else.
Yeah, uncomfortable.
Something. It's basically Penn and Teller VR. FUUU and you is what the subtitle is. FUUU and you, and it's using VR to mess with your friends. Basically, you can use virtual reality to just screw people over. The goal of the project, as stated by Penn, was I want people to come out of each experience and say, "You're a jerk. That was completely immoral. That was wrong. That was unethical. I cannot believe you did that to me. Let's go do it to somebody else."
Yep.
That's his objective, and I believe he's succeeding. So they were in the studio. This is after work on Thursday, so that we could record. We could record some voiceover, and we recorded voiceover not merely with pen, but we recorded voiceover with Teller. Yes,
recorded voice.
That's right.
Over.
That's right. And you'll have to decide. You'll have to guess, since most people have never heard Teller speak. You might not even realize that a voiceover voice is actually Teller. But he's in the game. Teller talks, man.
What?
It's true, and it's pretty good. It's really good, and Teller nailed it. There's this one thing he had to do. It's basically a mentalism bit where Teller had the idea that it'd be fun if we kind of explain it, how it works, but the explanation is a lie. But he said it's got to be so extremely complicated, like one of those math problems with playing cards, that people think it's plausible. And so we came up with the most complicated math problem imaginable. One of the guys on the team wrote out in long form, in script form, the algorithm for spherical harmonics.
Oh my gosh.
And Teller nailed it. Like it's like 10 pages. It's like the thing where we don't expect anyone to, it's almost like Desert Bus. We don't expect anyone to actually get through it. But he got through it. And it was absolutely amazing.
That's fantastic.
Yes. So that was great. And then the next day after work, we drove up to Oklahoma and watched him perform at the WinStar Casino and Resort, which happens to be the largest casino in the world in freaking Oklahoma, 45 miles from Gearbox headquarters.
Largest in the world.
Yes, it's insane. And I learned they have a poker room up there, so I might have to drive up one afternoon and on a weekend and play a little bit of poker. It's a lot easier than getting to Vegas, maybe. But that was really cool. Their show was amazing. There were 3,000 people there, and the energy in the room was incredible. And they had, what was really cool for me is I've seen Penn and Teller a bunch of times, and I know a lot of their bits inside and out. And there were a couple things that didn't quite go right, but the audience had no idea. And it was really fun to watch Penn and Teller, such pros, deal with the situations in real time and make things, if anything, even more entertaining for the audience.
Wow.
And as an entertainer, that was really enjoyable to watch that go down. And I will also say I happened to find love. They do this routine called the love ritual, and it involves tearing up playing cards and it's randomizing things, and if things work out in the end, that means you found love, and I found love, so I'm feeling pretty good about myself.
Congratulations.
And I found love with the 3 of clubs, which is a very special card.
Solid.
And it was great. And then this one more thing before we get to calls. This morning I just got back from Los Angeles. And last night, what I did, I had a meeting in Los Angeles on Saturday. So basically, I literally landed, came and did this.
Oh my gosh.
So I haven't really had any free time. But this was the thing I did in the evening yesterday night was really cool. Houdini's estate is in Los Angeles on Laurel Canyon Boulevard, and it hasn't yet burned down.
I was gonna say.
Look, it's rough, man. I mean, there was smoke in the air, or maybe it was weed. But no, it was. I was smelling it, and it was rough, man. There's some brave people really fighting it out there in Los Angeles. So anybody out being affected by the fires, my heart goes out to you. And I saw it firsthand. And saw what the brave men and women that are fighting these fires were able to deal with so far. It's just unfathomable. But at the Houdini estate, there was this presentation called 49 Boxes, and there's a magician named Floyd Thayer who built the Brookledge Theater in Hollywood. Floyd Thayer was a very famous magician around the turn of the last century, and he built apparatus and props for magicians, including for Houdini. And the premise of this evening was that Floyd Thayer left behind after his death one last trick, and there were literally piles of these ancient boxes, and inside of all these boxes were letters from Thayer and apparatus and artifacts, and they were. It was basically a combination of magic and puzzles. And there were all these magicians in the house, and we all dug into these boxes and had to figure out Floyd Thayer's last mystery.
Wow.
Together, and it was the coolest thing. And
that's so cool.
It felt, you know what it felt like? It felt like a reverse escape room. Like we were fine, but we all had to break into these boxes. It had these crazy ancient locks, and it was really cool. And there was one lock we couldn't get, and we had to bolt cutter it. But we ended up getting inside. There were like 13 locks on this giant box. It was freaking awesome. I had to do this thing where, let's see, there was a typewriter where the keys had been rearranged. And this allowed it to become a cipher where one code could be typed with the typewriter and it would spell something different because the keys had been rearranged, and it was an ancient typewriter. There was another thing where if you retranspose without even typing, you can know what letter should have been there because we know what a typewriter is supposed to be. And that leads to a different set of phrases, and that led to a whole solution. There was an interesting ancient Chinese lamp that we had to figure out how to get operating, and the lampshade, when we got the thing operating, the lampshade had symbols that would we could see the shadows of these symbols that were embedded into the lampshade, and the symbols then led to a cipher, which we were able to figure some other things out. And then there was something which, if there's any magicians watching, they'll know, there was a peace dollar, a silver peace dollar, which was like 1921 United States currency made of silver. It's a silver dollar. And there was, in a completely different box and a completely different table, there was a ring, an object that magicians know as a bang ring. And it was silver dollar size. And my box had the silver dollar, and I'm like, I know it's up here. So I was able to put these things together and discover that inside the peace dollar was a clue. And it was like only magicians would like know what to do there, but it was really cool. Anyway, it was a great night, and we solved the mysteries of Floyd Thayer at the Houdini estate, and it was really cool. And man, I've just been monologuing. What do you think? Should we talk to? Should we get to some questions here?
Yeah. Let's do the thing.
All right, cool. Well, let me take one call that's a call in, and then I'll get to some Discord people.
Sure.
And let's see what we got going on here. Hi, Evan. This is Randy. You're on the air.
Hi. The characters in Borderlands have so many different interesting skills and abilities. How difficult is it to balance each of the characters and all of their skills?
Wow.
Oh man, well you were ready with that question. So you're from Connecticut?
Yeah.
What's the weather like up there right now?
It's cold.
Yeah.
A little bit of snow on the ground.
So it was 30 something degrees a couple of days ago here in Dallas, and now it's 70. So we're okay. Sorry about your luck being in Connecticut, but you'll get through the winter. I believe in you. I'll tell you, one of the things that's interesting about character balance is it's never done, and it's never perfect. And we had this philosophy when we started that we'd rather just kind of go for things that we think are fun and get things in the game than be super dogmatic or hyper religious about perfect balance. And there are things that are kind of game breaking. You can figure out certain, there are some skill trees. And when I say game breaking, I mean OP, overpowered, right? That said, there is a lot of attention and effort that goes into that. In the past games, we'd get all the skills going. We do tons of beta testing on our side, and we do user research and focus testing. But you'll even notice that even after we launched, there were some tweaks made to some of the skills, mostly bug fixes. But we did reserve ourselves. Now you can find some examples where even after launch we did nerf some things, but for the most part my philosophy was, look man, if people find cool combinations that make the game fun for them, that might even be a little bit exploitive, let them have their fun.
Yeah.
But it's really an impossible problem. I'll tell you, I think we've gotten a lot better at it. One of the things we did between Borderlands 2 and now was we made a game called Battleborn.
Right.
And Battleborn has a zillion characters, and they're all really different, and they all have wild skill trees and wild abilities, and the game can be played competitively. Mm-hmm. And so in a competitive environment, balance is really key and important. You can't have a character that can just dominate and overpower the game and have a fair match. So balance became a more important goal for us with Battleborn. And a lot of the muscles we developed there and the skills we developed in that are at work with games that are in development right now at Gearbox. And I'm pretty excited by that. Now I still contend that in a single player or cooperative game, it's okay if, in the sake of fun, there are some emergent properties or combinations that could be pretty extreme and powerful. I think that's still okay, and I think there can be fun in trying to discover those for players. I have fun discovering them when I play.
And I think it's pretty on brand for Borderlands, considering.
Yes, yeah. But there is a lot more skill and a lot more kind of developed muscle tissue at Gearbox for making more balanced characters. And I think that as you see some of the different games that we're working on, as they start to become announced and emerge, you're going to see some some wider skill types, some wider character types with more diverse and more interesting and wild abilities than you may have seen in the past, and that's just, I think, because we're getting better at it. Mm-hmm. But yeah, that was. That's an interesting question. Do you think I answered it for you?
Yes, you definitely answered it. Thank you.
Cool, man. All right. Well, hey, if you ever want to call back and talk about other stuff, feel free to do so. Thanks for your call.
All right. Thank you.
All right. Cheers. Bye, Evan.
Thanks.
That was fun.
Sweet.
Cool. So, should we take?
We do not have anybody here on Discord.
There was somebody a second ago, but maybe Joe didn't like him.
Yeah, there's there is somebody who's about to be on deck.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. So, what do you? I mean, which character did you played Borderlands 2?
Oh,
right?
yes.
And did you play you play Sirens, don't you?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Now, why do you choose? Why do you choose the you played Maya in Borderlands 2?
Yes.
And Lilith in Borderlands 1.
Yeah.
So why did you choose them?
Well, so I kind of started off in my sort of gamer journey playing mages in games like Neverwinter Nights and World of Warcraft,
yeah.
And I felt like the Siren was kind of the closest parallel to that, especially when it came to kind of matching elemental damage in World of Warcraft. I was just a full fire mage, and as soon as I learned that there were guns that could set things on fire, I said, ooh, yay, cool. This is excellent. So the idea of sort of doing kind of ranged stuff, plus setting things on fire, it was kind of the closest parallel for me there. And then also just on site, just identity of the character. I kind of gravitated to Lilith right away.
Yeah. That's cool. I mean, I'll tell you, I played I played Roland in BL1 as my main, and I played Axton in BL2 as my main. But I ended up probably spending, I don't know. I mean, I played all the characters, of course, but I never really played the game where I was trying to find that exploitive skill tree. Like that. Like I never really overly min-maxed it. I just sort of played it as it came, and made choices about skills as they came. But I understand that there are some pretty extreme builds for Salvador with the right gear in Borderlands 2 if you care about throughput. But every player's got a different interest, right? So throughput doesn't matter to everybody, and some people like the crowd control ability that the Maya House, for example, just outweighs any ability to do damage, and she can, by the way, throw down. There are certain builds that she has that can throw down, but sometimes I think that we've discovered that just having different capabilities that lend themselves to radically different play styles is almost enough when you're making a cooperative game, because not everybody has the same sort of objective in their build, and if you have different types of skills, then people will naturally choose the different characters. And I think we improved in Borderlands 2 over Borderlands 1. The evidence shows that the distribution of players between the different characters was even closer than in BO1, right? I think that the difference between the least played character and the most played character was like 3 percentage points.
Wow.
Yeah.
Cool.
I don't have the exact numbers memorized, but I remember the last time I looked at it, it was like that. Should we take another call?
Sure.
All right. Let's see here. I'm gonna click this, and let's see if this works. And if it works, we should be talking to Rachel from Louisiana. Is this Rachel?
Hi. Yeah.
Hey, how's it going?
It's going. How are you guys doing today?
Great. How are you?
Living the dream. Living the dream. So what's going on down in what's going on down in Louisiana?
Well, I'm in northern Louisiana, so East Texas, pretty much.
Okay.
Texas.
I'm sorry.
No, it's fine.
No, I did that wrong.
Yeah.
I'll do the joke right. Tell me again. Where were you living again?
I live in Louisiana.
I'm sorry.
Northern Louisiana.
Oh no, I heard you. I'm sorry. That's the joke.
Oh.
Ba-dum-bum.
Yeah, I gotcha.
Okay. No, I'm sure it's great. So what's on your mind? What's going on?
I actually have I guess 2 questions I'd want to ask.
Let's do it.
First one, I have a friend who's interested in working
Asking
as a
for a
graphic
friend.
designer.
Got it.
Well, I am asking for a friend, and I'm going to ask a question for myself.
Okay, cool. Let's do this.
I have a friend who she wants to work as a graphic designer, for a company like Gearbox. And we both tried to do research and stuff like that on what exactly graphic design for a game company would be like beyond advertising and stuff like that. Because she wants to start building a portfolio to sell herself as a graphic designer for video games, and she doesn't quite know where to go from there.
Yeah. So, what I think the question I'd start with is what does graphic design mean to your friend? What kind of art is your friend into? What does your friend want to make? Is your friend into compositing images and putting together layouts? What does graphic design mean to your friend? There's so many different specializations in video game development that where some of the skills that you traditionally associate with a graphic designer can absolutely apply to game development. But there's also some things that aren't quite that. So I'd start with where the passion is. Where's the passion? Because I've discovered that what people like to do, they tend to do a lot of, and people tend to get good at things they do a lot of. And so, and that's the key, is just getting good. We are always interested in people that are better than we are. So if your friend can do anything at all that she's seen in any of our games and can do it better than we can do it, we will absolutely want her on our team. Now, that said, there's all kinds of cool applications for things like graphic design beyond just building advertising. Obviously, there is a lot of comms about our games, so there are straight up advertisements, but there's also a lot of work on the web and work on first party stores and all kinds of things like that. And there's all kinds of, we kind of call that, all of that kind of work together, I tend to call it creative services, where you have creative people that know their way around a bunch of different art programs that can cut everything from, or composite everything from still images to sometimes even video pieces that are useful for communicating about different things, and there's specialization there. But there's also a lot of that work that goes into the games themselves. We've got we're in a world now where UI is increasingly designed, and both from a functional point of view, but from compositional and artistic point of view. There's a lot of style that goes into a user interface now, from a head-up display to menus. And some of that work is technical, but a lot of the layout work, a lot of the kind of prototypical work, the the sort of proof of concept work is non-technical, and we do it all in 2D, and you know, sometimes we've had people that lay out UI in PowerPoint. I'm not kidding. Just to show like, hey, what would this look like? We can see it pretty fast. And then there's like a motion graphics aspect to it as well. So if people know how to make things move around and animate things with whatever tool gets the job done, to visualize it. And then once we visualize something and we can start to agree on all the elements that need to go into it and how those elements interplay, then it gets really fast actually to code it all up. The thing that takes so much time in game development isn't the typing. There's, you know, if we had all of our programmers just nonstop typing, we'd be done with the game in a couple of months. The difficulty is in the iteration. It's in discovering what needs to be typed, and a lot of that can be discovered in layout form. And does not necessarily have to be engineered fully in order to realize close enough to the vision. And graphic artists and graphic designers can be really valuable in that process. And I think that's increasingly becoming true. I think user interface is becoming more and more valuable in AAA games on Xbox and PlayStation. Obviously, you can already see examples in mobile where the entire value of the product is in basically user interface and head-up display kind of work, graphic design kind of work. There's a lot more typically a lot more to a AAA video game on Xbox or PlayStation, but more and more we care about those elements, whether we're talking about menus or head-up displays or other supplementary stuff that functions with the game. We have a series called Brothers in Arms, and it's an historically accurate game. We care about authenticity a lot, and one of the components in the game is basically a living interactive encyclopedia that connects the video game experience to the real world history, and a lot of the presentation of that is basically graphic design work, and there's enough work there that can employ multiple people for a while. so that's one thing, and that's where it goes like the deepest. But even in games like Borderlands, there's a lot of stuff. And frankly, like there was a cool part of Battleborn, which is all about the lore and the character lore and stuff, and I thought it was pretty good. I imagine that could even be better if we had more graphic design people that could invest themselves wholly in creating the presentation for that kind of experience. So there's a whole lot of stuff there. Did that help at all, or?
Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah, it helps a lot. I guess, what would, I guess you're saying, if you want to kind of if you're a graphic designer, you want to put a portfolio together kind of specifically about things that you're, would rather focus on in game design? Yeah,
I mean, everyone's different when they recruit, but for me, what I care about is I don't want anyone, I want to work with people that really love what they're doing, So, it's easy to hire people they'll do what you say if you pay them, but that's not where you get the best result, right? The best results come from passion. And to me, the magic happens when you figure out how to find the nexus between where passion and capability meet the opportunity that exists in the marketplace and the need that a project might have. And when those things all come together, then magic happens. So I always would start from what thrills the creator? When you're talking about someone who likes to create things, what is most exciting about that creation? And then let that mind itself think, okay, how can I take what thrills me about creation and make it valuable to a commercial effort? How do I tune my skills or hone my capabilities and my interests towards what can be useful or valuable in a commercial effort? And you can already see what's in Gearbox games, and there's a lot of different types of Gearbox games, and you can kind of see, well, what kind of work can I do, and how could that be useful in some way? And if I got better and better at it, how could I even maybe bring something to the table that could be better than than what's already there. And you don't have to imagine the whole thing. I mean, games are complicated. There's a lot of software involved, and there are engineers to do that. And sometimes the idea of how do I take my two-dimensional image and get it to animate and move in that way, sometimes that part alone makes us a little kind of afraid. But if we're a 2D graphic designer, for example, and we know we can do great work there, we can also trust that there's going to be other people that are great at animation, or other people that are great at creating the software that give us the tools to make things come alive and exist in the program, and we will work together. Video games, especially at the scale that Gearbox makes, is a massive team effort, and everyone's got a part to play. But I definitely start with passion, start with interest.
Yeah. All right, well, I'll let her know. She's just too nervous to call you guys.
So. You know what? I'll tell you.
She has that anxiety, so I'm speaking on her behalf.
I totally
get it.
My
question.
I totally get it. And let me tell her something else. Before you get me your quote, let me give you something else that you can give to her. I totally get it, and we've actually got a lot of people at the studio that are, creators are. We're all kind of weirdos, and some of us are a lot more comfortable interacting with our computers and our tools and our technology than other people. And I love weirdos, and I love people. I love creators, and I found at Gearbox that even the shyest person, or the person that isn't really great at interacting live, but is happy and passionate about expressing themselves through their art or through their creativity, those people are loved at Gearbox.
Yep.
And there's a lot of us. And this is hard for many people to believe, but when I was young, I was one of those people. Like, I'm totally on the spectrum, and it's one of the reasons why I got into magic. It helped me figure out how to kind of become socialized, I guess. But I was a mess as a kid, and I wasn't great at interacting with people. And my brother would invite people over, and I would just hide in my room and play video games. and it's okay. It's totally cool. And it makes a lot of sense. People are scary.
It's
yeah.
And sometimes, especially I think I've become that person I used to be scared of. So I try to do my best when I have opportunity to be super welcoming and just try to love everybody if I can. Let's talk about you.
Certainly something I really appreciate.
Oh, thanks.
I would just want to say something I really appreciate about you, Randy, and everyone at Gearbox, how you guys present yourself, being so open and flexible and comfortable with people coming and talk to you. You're not this foreign, ominous entity that happens to crank out video games.
We are silly geese that just happen to work together and make cool stuff every day.
Yeah, I'll tell you, I've gotten better when I listen, and that's one of the reasons why I'm doing the show. Is I just want to create another path where people can chat, and I can learn what's going on in folks' minds. And I think the other thing about it too is I think that the relationship that entertainers should have with audiences should be a relationship of mutual respect. And my wife thinks the thing that's wrong with me is I actually get more reward from seeing other people experience joy than when I experience it myself, and that doesn't work unless.
I feel like that's the artist's plight.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of that.
Things. It's really more about to me personally, I get more excited making things for other people than I do for myself.
Isn't that interesting?
Kind of like I cook better when there are other people around because I know they're going to eat it.
Yes.
And like it. I'm more likely to pull out all the stops. But if it's just me, I'm just going to heat up a pack of ramen.
Totally. In fact, sometimes with my own stuff, I'll defer. I get sent a lot of cool stuff over the holidays, and it's not because it's companies trying to get Gearbox's attention, right? They'll send but I just got this box of these unbelievable chocolates, and they're and I love chocolate, but I already know what's going to happen. I'm going to sort of save them and hoard them. And and then at some point I might find myself, there's other people around going, hey, here they all are, and then they'll come out and get shared.
You're gonna be like, here.
I know they're gonna be delicious, but I think I'll actually enjoy them more when I'm with other people that are eating them than if I just eat them myself. So weird.
Yeah.
Anyway, hey, so what did you want to talk about? You had something for you that you wanted to get to.
All right. It's kind of for me, but it's also kind of for you guys too at the same time.
Okay.
I kind of want to know how you all journeyed into, both of you, since you're both here, into working in the game industry. I mean, like, I can understand where you came from, Randy, but I feel like people always have an interesting story of how they get in.
Gosh.
Let's hear Elisa's story.
Well, gather round, boys and girls.
Gather around, Gosling.
We have a little story. So I have been, sort of classic, et cetera, playing video games all my life. I actually, and you know what? I'm just gonna come out and say it. I actually got a matching tattoo with my brother of NES controllers.
Wow.
A couple of weeks ago.
Are you kidding?
No, I'm not.
Wow. Okay. That's commitment.
Yeah, because
I can imagine getting married and having a few kids, but a tattoo? Holy crap. That's
forever.
real commitment.
That's actually forever. That is actually forever. So video games have been a huge thread in my life the entire time. But the things that I kind of wanted to do included being a teacher and being a singer. And I was a huge theater nerd when I was kind of in middle school and high school. I just wanted to be a performer. I wanted to be an entertainer. But I also wanted to be a teacher.
Surprised by that.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just, it's weird. And so I was also a huge nerd and just wanted to stay in school forever because I'm a sucker for, the scent of a fresh textbook. And so as part of my journeys, I got a kind of liberal studies major because I wanted to be on Jeopardy, and I figured liberal studies was a good major where I could just learn everything, which is the most career stable move anyone could ever make, which no. But through the process, I found my first degree was women's studies, and I felt super, super jazzed about it. And I saw a lot of cool, interesting parallels between what I was learning and what I was experiencing as a woman in a rock band every day. So when it came time to go to graduate school, because I figure, what are the things that you do? When as a day job, the only thing that I could think of as a day job that I wanted to do was teach. And I knew that I had to get an advanced degree to do that. So I went and got my first master's in interdisciplinary
My
studies.
first master's. Go ahead.
Just dropping that in there. In interdisciplinary studies, but I was mainly studying like women in popular music because I wanted to teach that class someday. And then when I went to get my PhD, because I told myself, nobody is going to like seeing master's in interdisciplinary studies on a resume because that doesn't mean much of anything. All right, start over. All right, I'm going to go get the PhD because, again, I'm a nerd and I guess I crave punishment.
Why does that have to come with nerddom?
Well, I know. I just love learning.
We just focus.
Yeah, I just absolutely
not
love
to the nerd.
That's right.
That's right. Yeah, but being a grad student though, that's where the punishment comes in.
Yeah.
And so while I was pursuing this stuff and I was pursuing this kind of like gender and popular music study, I found that there were also a lot of parallels with stuff that I experienced being a woman playing video games. And I didn't kind of want to throw away like 6 years of study in music and just completely start over and study video games. And so I went to my advisor and I told him, hey, I'm having this weird existential crisis where I'm about to throw away 6 years of work and study video games because who takes that seriously ever? And he says, they make music games, don't they? And then light bulb, of course, didn't have to throw away 6 years of work. I could still study video games and all of that jazz. But throughout the entire thing, I always thought that I was going to be a teacher. It wasn't until I met up with this group of women gamers called the Frag Dolls. They were a group of women gamers sponsored by Ubisoft to kind of help market their games, and they had a sort of internship program called the Frag Doll Cadets. And I applied to be one, and basically it involved, going and helping promoting games at different shows, and it was when I stepped into my first PAX West, and it was my first ever video game event, and I sort of went from being an outsider playing these things to kind of being the person to help educate people. Like, that kind of hit all of the different kind of pleasure centers in my brain of like, I want to educate someone, I want to excite someone, and I get to do it all around video games. And that was kind of like my aha moment of like, hey, maybe I don't need to be stuck in the classroom forever. Maybe there's a way that I can do this inside an actual video game studio. There's a lot of grind and hustle later. Somehow I ended up here sitting next to you.
Hey, all paths work. All paths work.
But yeah, like I didn't even, quote unquote, go to school to study something specific about video games. I just kind of developed skills along the way, like, just in an effort to make money. So like, I'm in grad school, I learned how to write. I wanted to get nearer and nearer to video games. So my local newspaper had like local conventions and stuff, and they needed somebody to write, top 10 cosplays at, the Miami Convention Center, whatever. And I was the person writing those because I actually knew who those people were and all those costumes were. And so like getting all of those skills together between writing and trying to promote stuff that I was writing on social media, so developing those skills there, and then promoting other stuff, via Twitch and YouTube, and kind of building those channels, like all of that stuff kind of came together, and kind of developing those skills because I was passionate about them, and that's just stuff that I wanted to do. And then all of a sudden, Journey's kind of taken me to a couple of places, but then there's this new media manager thing that opens up that's like, hey, do you do stuff on Twitch and YouTube? Yes. Are you kind of cool with like social media and community management stuff? Yes. Can you like write some stuff and, maybe edit video a little bit? Yeah. Can you do stuff in front of a crowd? What? Yes. Hello. And so, yeah, I applied and somehow, ended up here. So it's a lot of that, being passionate about the stuff that you do and getting super good at it and honing it, for me over the course of years. But you eventually end up where you need to be.
If I've learned that if you look into every overnight success story, it turns out there's like lots of, it wasn't overnight at all. There's lots of stuff that's I got into this industry. I started as a programmer, and my good fortune was my dad was a nerd, so we always had computers around the house. And back before, like when I was growing up, there were no computers in schools. There was no curriculum to learn this stuff in school. And my dad would kit bash he'd make his own machines and make his own computers. And then eventually the home PC market started opening up with products like Apple, and then the Apple II, and things like, right now, my original 8088 computer, which was a Timex Sinclair 1000. It's actually my original Timex Sinclair 1000 is on display at the Bullock Texas History Museum down in Austin. Did you know that?
No.
Yeah, they started a new video game exhibit, and they asked for my first computer. And
wow.
I didn't even know, like, what's his face took them through, and they just took a bunch of our stuff. And then Aaron just went down there and said, like, dude, here's your computer. Took a picture of it, and there's a little thing about me on there, and it was like, oh my god, I'm so proud of that. But yeah, it started with me trying to, learn how to use the computer. And back when computing first started, there were no programs. So like when I got that Timex Sinclair 1000, that completely changed everything for me. Before then, my dad would just tell me the instructions that the machine would understand. But the Timex Sinclair 1000 came with a manual, and the manual didn't say things like, hey, press start, click the icon. There were no icons. Everything was text. And the manual just had a list of all the instructions you can give the computer. And the instructions, that is basically the programming language. And it was this weird form of BASIC that particular machine understood. And I'd written some simple programs. And eventually I wrote a program that was my attempt to recreate Pac-Man at home. And my Pac-Man was amazing. The computer only had 2K of RAM, so there were no everything was the same block. So the ghosts and Pac-Man looked identical, and the block that represented Pac-Man looked identical to the blocks that I used to make the walls of the maze. And there were no dots because I didn't have the fidelity to make dots. Also, the computer was not as fast as whatever machine was running Pac-Man. It was also black and white, but it was so slow that every move that I would make, I'd click right, up, down, left, or right, the screen would slowly refresh. So it was like turn-based Pac-Man.
Oh my gosh.
It was awesome.
I want to play this.
It was turn-based Pac-Man. So I'd move you'd click left and your Pac-Man would move one notch to the left. But first the whole screen would refresh. You'd hit left and the whole screen would refresh, draw it up, and then Pac-Man would be one dot over, one space over. And it wouldn't be Pac-Man, it'd just be a block. And then all the ghosts would move too. The other thing about it was I wasn't that good. I was really young. I was I think 9 years old when I wrote this. And there was no great places to learn any of this stuff, so you had to play it on the honor system. There was no collision. It would let you walk right through the wall if you wanted to. So you had to. It was turn-based Pac-Man on the honor system. What was interesting though, this is what I discovered later. I did do a check where the ghosts would not try to walk through the walls. And it turns out that same I could have used that same algorithm to do a check when the player decided to move Pac-Man, but I just wasn't clever enough to realize that was a different rudimentary form of collision detection. The algorithm that I used to keep the ghost from attempting to walk into a wall could have been applied as a preemptive test before I allowed Pac-Man to be moved into the wall by the player. Anyway, it's early days. I was learning stuff, and I attempted once to make D&D, Dungeons and Dragons, in this computer, and by the time I consumed all the RAM, I had barely made the character generator, so I never even got into any. But I did learn how to set up a dimensional array. I did actually have a bit of a game. It had 4 rooms. And I started you in one room, and you can go north or west. And there was another room that was to the northwest. So you'd have to go through one room and the other. And in one room I had a shield, in the other room I had a sword, and then that corner room was a dragon. And if you had both the sword and the shield, you would survive one turn. You'd survive one turn if you had the shield, and if you rolled high enough and you got the right stats, your sword could do enough damage with two attacks to kill the dragon. And that was a complete game in my world back then. And but I a similar thing to you, man. I was going to school for I was trying to be a lawyer.
Really?
Yeah. And I was, and it turns out that probably would have been a bad decision. Because I think
the world is better off.
Probably, yeah. Not because of the games. Just we need less lawyers, right?
No.
Oh man, but it was. Yeah, I learned a lot though. I did. I learned a lot in that, and I'm grateful for that experience because as I started my own stuff, I was able to do all the contract negotiations and do the contracts on my own. And it's helped me a lot over the years to have some background in that. But yeah, but I never realized you could actually make a career out of making games. I was a game developer as a hobbyist as long as I could remember. But I always thought that the really awesome stuff, like the actual Pac-Man, like that's impossible. Like my Pac-Man sucked, right? That Pac-Man, like there had to be, some giant huge place somewhere, and they had to there had to be a chocolate river and Oompa Loompas and who knows what, and all this magic would happen, and then the video game would pop out on the other end, and then all of it seemed just so inaccessible. And I think if you think about if you go back to the thinking about graphic design or whatever you're into, my text adventure Pac-Man was to actual Pac-Man what whatever your specialization is. And I was worried about like, gosh, somebody like knows how to like build this beautiful cabinet out of wood, and I don't know how they're getting a sticker that big to put on the side of the cabinet with the art that looks so great, and the art's beautiful, and the things are lighting up, and somebody's doing the electrical engineering on all that, and of course, you know, the game graphics are all animated and look great. But it turned out what I was doing, I was solving really difficult problems, right? I had this limited amount of memory and this limited amount of computing power, but I adapted what my intent was to fit within it, and I made something cohesive that worked and was complete and actually functioned as a complete piece of software. And that was a bunch of different skills that culminate over the years into my role, which is more of organizing a larger vision and seeing how all the pieces can fit together and fitting them within whatever the constraints are, which is usually about time and budget and the computing power of the machine we're trying to get on. But everyone's got a specialization, and everyone can, you know, lean into that and get really, really good at that thing that they're good at. And that's what I recommend. I don't know if that was at all interesting to you. I just
no, I'm glad to kind of hear you guys, because a few weeks ago I actually visited Gearbox Studios.
Oh, you did?
I'm a fan artist. Yeah. I actually saw both of you, but you were all busy.
Oh,
so
man.
I did not act like a nut and go give me all business. But
cool. That's rare that we give tours, by the way. So congratulations. We do not give tours.
Yeah, well, it was one of my friends actually works for you guys, and she's wonderful. And it was a birthday gift. She was like, "Hey, drive 3 hours to Dallas," and you know,
That's
it
so
was
cool.
honestly one of the best days of my life. Because,
that's so awesome.
Because I personally I've been kind of going around trying to figure out what I want to do. I'm an artist, and I've always done art. I do comics. I love film, video games, animation, storytelling, and I've always thought I'd be going into film.
Yeah.
Eventually, one day, hopefully, who knows? But I visited you guys, and I don't know, like, I guess what I'm trying to say is, like, after I visited you guys, I realized that that's what I want to be doing.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I agree with you. That's what I want to be doing.
I want to go into concept art and illustration and working in that way.
Cool.
That just seems to be where all my things land. It's like, oh my God, this is exactly what I want to be doing.
That's awesome.
Yay!
Well, I'll tell you, we need more people like you.
It's been a very clarifying month for Rachel.
Oh, that's great. Well, we need more people like you.
We need more Rachels.
One of the things you'll notice, I don't know how much time you spent at the studio, but the industry still has the ratio of men to women it's not yet what the population is, but we need to entertain everybody. And so I'm really, one of the kind of things that I'm want, and not just the ratio of men to women, but all diversity. I want to make sure, if our mission is to entertain the world, that we are of the world. And so we need I think people that are in demographics that are underrepresented in the industry, I think actually have advantages, especially with a studio like mine that cares about.
Well, whenever you have diversity, the more diversity you have, the better story you can tell.
That's correct. Yep. Exactly right. You just
keep
said better what I was trying to say.
Sum it up. It's just the more diverse your people are, the more diverse ideas you're going to have.
Yep.
Because you're going to have different perspectives and approaches.
You just said in a better way what I was trying to say. Thank you.
You could tell cooler stories, and
that's ultimately why I'm such a big Gearbox fan. I've been playing your guys' games since Borderlands 1, and
cool.
I've always been so amazed by just the development and the willingness to do things that everyone else in the industry says is too dangerous to do, which isn't that scary.
Right, absolutely.
And
we do take risks. They don't always pay off, by the way.
Yeah.
So if you have that's
I
the other thing too, by the way, with your art. When we approach things sincerely, like it's really easy to kind of be sarcastic about things and to approach our craft with a bit of reservation that comes with not really investing ourselves. But when you approach art sincerely, man, you can get hurt because you give something your love and your commitment, and people we can never really control how people react to our work. And it's you can get hurt when you put yourself out there. So you have to be willing to, expose yourself in that way, and let that happen, and be okay with the consequences, and feel better about the fact that there was sort of a sincere commitment to the art than needing everyone's approval of it. If that makes sense. There's always love, but there's also it doesn't matter what game we're talking about. There's always love and there's always hate. And but when you do it sincerely, the hates really can be rough. So you got to be careful and figure out how to build that shell too, because that hate is designed to keep people like you from creating. And that's not good.
Exactly.
The world sucks if no one creates anything, because we're all afraid. So we need to be okay with it, and be okay creating, and be okay with the possibility that we could get hurt from it. So just a fair warning on that one. But it's very rewarding. Yeah. It's very, very rewarding to create something that other people dig.
I'm super glad.
Well, I'm about to put myself through that, because I'm actually putting my portfolio together to send to you guys.
Oh, cool.
What you guys think.
Awesome.
But I definitely am feeling that, well, I'm putting myself out there, and at the very least, I'll get some criticism.
Yeah, or you've done it. You've done it, and here's the thing.
Yeah, exactly. That's the one thing is I'll have done this,
and that's the key too, is keep doing stuff, especially if you've never put a portfolio together before. Everything I've ever done, the first 1 or 10 times I do it, I tend to suck at it, frankly. And the biggest advantage that creators have over lay people is lay people can't fathom the amount of time we're willing to invest into what we do. That's really it. We'll just put stupid amounts of time into what we do. And if you keep doing it and keep putting time at it, eventually you kind of notice that you're kind of ahead of the people around you. Not everybody. There's always going to be people ahead of you to get inspiration from. But you'll also get your own spin, and you'll be doing something that no one else is doing, and that sets you apart. And that just naturally happens when you put the time in. So whatever happens, keep doing it.
Yep.
Regardless of what happens, just keep going, keep going, keep going. That is the entire secret. Hey, Rachel, it's been really awesome talking with you. It's
been great talking with you guys.
And feel free, if you want to call back on future shows or whatever, feel free. It's been a pleasure chatting with you. If it's okay, I'm going to let you go, and we're going to take another call.
That's fine.
Thank you so much, Rachel.
Thanks,
it's a pleasure chatting with you.
A lot of air.
No, it was great. I really enjoyed talking with you.
No, this is awesome.
Cool, thanks. All right, talk to you later, Rachel. Bye-bye.
Bye.
That was super fun.
Okay, that was Rachel. And now let's take a call from Discord.
Yes.
And I just dragged this.
Just drag
okay, this
them
is my first.
all the way into the live on air section.
This is going to happen.
Oh boy, I hope this works.
We'll see.
Hello.
Hey, are you on the air?
Hello, Lowlines.
I think you're on the air. What's your name?
My name's my real name's Richard, and I'm from Australia.
Richard from Australia. Very nice to talk to you. I'm Randy. I'm from California. I live in Texas.
Awesome.
You're on the show, man.
I actually have a game idea for you, but I want to ask a Battleborn related question first. Okay. If that's okay with you.
Yeah, let's do it.
What are your thoughts on the idea of, I suppose, either open sourcing or NDAing the information you would need to make an offline mode for Battleborn?
I like that idea a lot. I've been I was advocating from day one on that project that we should support offline, and there's a whole lot of reasons why the folks on the project weren't able to go all the way with that. But I love the fact that you just asked that, because you're giving me more ammo. You're giving me more ammo.
Yeah, well, it's like I've thought about it, and like the way like you'd approach it with the least amount of I suppose messing with the code is to do like it's called like an emulator where it like the game still thinks it's online, but it's actually talking to a local, I suppose, server.
Yeah.
That
That's probably the easiest way to technically accomplish that, and I think that becomes more and more accessible as computing power increases, but the software staying the same. There is a thread that is exactly along the lines of why you asked that question that I have with the Battleborn team, and that thread has to get some definitive answer. I'd say, I hope within the next 4 to 6 months. I think there needs to be something there. I will be very, very sad if our publishing partner decides to shut it down and that's it. So I think we need to create conditions, because I love the game, and I think there's a lot of people that love playing the game, and
just simply preserving it so that way,
absolutely, that too,
other people can check it out later.
Yeah, and I have some ambitions for Battleborn as well, as does Sean Reardon, who's executive producer with me on the Battleborn franchise, and Randy Varnell, who's the creative director, and I think those ambitions, there'll be something that happens with that. There's a lot of great stuff there that has a future. But what you ask about specifically, I think something along those lines, if not exactly what you asked, should be not merely considered, but there needs to be some action along those lines at some point. And I absolutely endorse that and support that. Know that there's lots of people involved. So it's not, even though I'm the boss of Gearbox, one of the weird things about working with people is it doesn't, the idea of hierarchy is useful for communication and a bit for decision making, but if you want to get really awesome creative work to happen, you can never run it like a totalitarian dictatorship, because people do what they want, and people do what they're motivated to do, what they believe in, and what they're proud of. And so sometimes, and I'm speaking generally, I'm kind of outside the scope of what you were specifically asking about, but I'm sort of going into how it can be that anything happens that has the Gearbox logo on it that I might not even support. And it's because we have lots of awesome creative people involved, and because they can't be awesome and creative if everybody does only what I say there is to do, because I can't say everything. There's just too much stuff. So what we do is we develop a flat structure with a huge amount of autonomy, and the people within the studio get to own their domain and make decisions about their domain. And what you're talking about isn't precisely in my domain. I technically have authority over it, but every time I swing that stick, it gets shorter and weaker. So I've got to be careful about how I use that stick. But I've been campaigning for that, and I'm glad you called and asked and advocated for that, because that gives more ammunition, more support for the idea of some kind of support for offline modes.
I've seen there's a lot of like some of the really like core fans there. When the initial news from Varnell popped up, they were, it's like having part of you ripped out, like the idea that at some point in time they won't be able to play the game anymore. So
yeah, unfortunately awesome. I didn't get to see that message, and even Randy himself, like the message he wrote, that was the message had gotten kind of mutated a bit by some other folks, and I don't think that was, neither Randy nor myself think that was an optimal message, and but it's out there. So but yeah, that was rough for me as a player too, and the thing is, it's not entirely accurate. There are people that care about, I mean, even since then there's been some things that have happened with Battleborn, but yeah, the reality though is we are in a world where most of our company's attention is on new things that are in development. So it gets increasingly difficult to support past things. I can't remember when we did the last patch for Borderlands 2, for example, or the pre-sequel. It's been a while. I can remember the last Battleborn patch, but there will be time in the future where I won't be able to remember that either. But that's because we're working on new things, and if we're lucky, those new things are exciting too, and people will love it.
Yeah.
If we're lucky. Hey, what you wanted to talk about a game idea? Speaking of new things, let's go on to that.
All right, so my game idea, it'd be, I suppose, a mobile app or some sort of, like more handheld sort of experience.
Okay.
And it'd style, the thralls from Battleborn?
Yep.
All right, so it'd style one of the little thralls, and he'd have a top hat.
Okay.
And it'd be like a side scroller, and the way he'd go through the levels, right? And, his goal would be to obviously... like maybe he's like trying to join the resistance, or maybe he's fighting for his own beliefs or something.
Okay.
But because one thing I noted, because I've looked at like a lot of the game data, is that the thralls in particular, they all actually share the same model. They like the little thrall is actually a normal size thrall with his head increased. And so I thought what could be cool with that is that he could have different, like Super Mario power-ups, where he finds an item and he transforms into one of the more beefier thralls to take out obstacles. So he might turn into one of the big enforcers to blow out a wall or something. And the main enemies he'd fight would be the Varelsi, but he might also have the Battleborn shooting in from the side. So you might have like Toby, like doing like a first-person heads-up shooting at the screen, and he's got to dodge all of his shots because it's
What are your favorite side scrollers? Have you played a lot of side scrollers?
Yeah, I've definitely done a lot of Mario.
What's the most recent side scroller you played?
Ooh, it's probably Mario. I probably wouldn't be able to tell you which one because there's been a few of them, but
yeah. I love side scrollers. It's a really challenging genre right now. You have to be careful if you're in the business of video games. You have to be careful how much you spend when making side scrollers. Mario is arguably the most successful side scroller of all time, and even with Mario, Nintendo has to be careful. Like Mario Maker, I think they consider a success, but we'll notice that when it came time to do a new Mario game for their new platform, the Switch, they went full 3D and third person with it. The Mario Odyssey, of course, and I don't know why, but there seems to be a bias. And forgive me if I ask, how old are you?
I'm 28 since
right.
about a week ago.
It's when you get down to like below the age of 17, there's a real bias against side scrollers. And I don't know why, but the younger the audience is, the more immature they think that kind of game is.
Yeah, they don't see it as a real game or something.
That's right. It's weird. But it is possible. You can do it. The other thing too that I'd say about that, by the way, I love the premise of a thrall and a top hat.
I mean, anything with a top hat,
and
especially a thrall.
And I love the premise of you had a few really clever ideas in there. Obviously, things that let you change your capability so that you can layer the gameplay or what you have access to. I call that Metroidvania kind of style gameplay, so that if there's an obstacle I can't get through until I have the ability to become Big Thrall, and then Big Thrall can smash through a thing, like that's great, right? I love that kind of stuff. The other great idea that I heard was the idea where you're in a side scroller gameplay, but there is the sort of Z-axis is utilized. You called it like Toby shooting at you from the first person. I imagine he's actually kind of in the background shooting towards the screen, and you have to dodge his action. You can do it the other way, of course, where he's the FPS view shooting into the screen, and you have to dodge his action with your 2D side scroller gameplay. But that's pretty cool, and I love that kind of perspective breaking when you're talking about a genre that has a fixed camera. Perspective breaking is really cool and can be a fun experience. Unfortunately, it's not something that you can use to sustain an entire gameplay, but like when it appears, it's really fun as a one-off. So congrats, man! Those are some really clever thoughts that you had into this. But in general, the thing I'd criticize in the idea is it's very difficult as a mobile experience to do justice with a side scroller in the way that you traditionally think about side scrollers, because virtual joysticks suck. There have been some games that have pulled it off, but it's just not great. A virtual joystick is not a great way to play a game, and customers on mobile don't tend to prefer virtual joysticks. Now, there was a Mario game that was a mobile game that got away with it. They didn't do a virtual joystick. They just made it a one-touch kind of game system. Yeah. And it worked. It played upon the forced forward momentum that we kind of feel when we play a Mario game, and they kind of made that feel okay. But I'd still argue, as great as that is, it's still not the best implementation of any 2D side-scrolling Mario game. It's the simplest, perhaps, and maybe the most accessible because of that simplicity, but it's not the best. And so you'd hate to compromise something. So I'd rather see the game that you imagine on a platform with a joystick, like a Switch or a Vita, or God forbid a DS, or you could do it. You could do it on. And not that I don't like the DS, but since the Switch happened, it's like, why do I care about that anymore? No, I know I'm fortunate enough to have a Switch, and I know not everyone can upgrade and get a new system every time they come out, but. And there are still a lot of DS gamers out there playing Nintendo DS, but it gets harder and harder to sell software. The other thing too is whenever you imagine you're going to begin a game process, you have to look ahead to what the market's going to be like in a year or 2 or 3 or 4, however long it takes to actually make the game, which is very hard to predict. Yeah. But I think Switch or a successor to it will be here. And there's always room for games like what you're talking about to exist, either on Steam or on the AAA consoles, but not as it won't be a big budget game. It'll be kind of an indie, it'll feel like an indie thing.
Yeah, I wasn't imagining it'd be a big game. It'd be intentionally like a small, like small snack sort of game that you just play. Sort of like that Battleborn Tap, where it is very, very light on the actual gameplay, but it kept you playing it.
Wasn't the art great in that? Those guys, that was a team in, they were in Barcelona, Spain, and they're little guys, the little kind of almost chibi versions of the dudes that they did were so cool. I love their art style in Battleborn Tap. I really enjoyed that. And yeah, it was super accessible, right? They just did a one button, the whole screen was a button, just tap anywhere, and it worked. Yeah, that's cool, man. Hey, anything else you want to talk about since you're on the line with us?
No, I suppose the only other thing is with mobile apps is what I'd probably do more of would be more API driven sort of apps. So, like say for instance, if you've got a game like Borderlands or something that has like an inventory, it'd be cool to have a way to actually interact with that off your screen.
Yeah. Yeah. We're thinking about that kind of stuff. Now, we had a very light interaction when we deployed, our Shift service. We had an app in Borderlands 2 era called Loot the World. Yeah. I'm not sure if you were familiar with that. I'm not sure. Is it still live?
It wasn't available outside of the US.
That's true. Yeah. And that wasn't our fault. For some reason, the lawyers were nervous about that, and I don't know why. And I wish they would just let it ride and then see what happened. But there was some reason why they were nervous about that in other territories. But we have now a capability of moving data around from the game to our online infrastructure, and then with the data there, we can get at it or move it around anywhere else. And that's one of the features of Loot the World. You could scan a barcode basically, and it would randomly generate a weapon in Borderlands, and if you liked it, you can send it to your backpack in the actual game of Borderlands.
That's awesome.
And that was just kind of like we were really testing that technology with that application just to see if everything worked, and we were trying to prepare ourselves for future steps using that technology. I love that kind of thing. I will say though that when we're building, there's only so many hours in the day, and the trouble we tend to have is we want to prioritize every reasonable ounce of activity we can prioritize towards the main game. So while we proved that technology, I have a feeling that we won't dig into it again until we have a successful game already launched that not only demands that technology to be used in a way that supports the game, but the resources are available to be prioritized towards that, and that priority makes sense. And we haven't experienced that since we did Loot the World. So, but I think we will experience that with at least one of our upcoming games, and I'm pretty excited about that. I think there's a really good chance that is true, and there'll be some neat opportunities for that. But it's really neat that we have that infrastructure now and that capability now, and I do.
If you've followed much of Bungie's Destiny, the whole API, like initially it started off as a private thing, but it's by the time the second game came out, it actually became something that was also built so that the community could build stuff with it. And there have been some really cool apps that have come out of it, particularly like the item management. Like in the early years of Destiny 1, it was literally a game changer that made the game more playable.
Right.
So having that avenue might create some experiences.
I'm a big fan of user generated content. I've got to figure out a way to get more evangelists within our company. But if you go back to the history of Gearbox, up until Brothers in Arms, every single game we did, we released some kind of editor, SDK, toolkit. And starting around Brothers in Arms, there was some reason why that wasn't achievable with Brothers in Arms itself. And again, we made multiple attempts at SDKs in Borderlands 1 and Borderlands 2, where I had committed some resources to it, but it just didn't get there, and that's frustrating. But I'm going to keep swinging at that.
Community have actually made a few community patches.
I love that. I love that kind of thing. And I used to do that. I actually still do. There are games I tinker with. And mod on my own other people's games. So I love having that access, and I think it's another path of engagement. And I also think it sometimes spawns some cleverness that can become part of the main line, and I think that's great. So yeah, I'm all for it. Hey man, thanks for your time. Thanks for chatting. I'm gonna let you go. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Cool. And you can feel free. We can talk next week if you like.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I still got more questions.
Awesome. Well, call us back next week. It was fun talking with you, man.
Thanks, Lowlines.
All right. Talk to you later.
Catch you later.
Bye.
Great.
That was awesome.
There you go.
That was really awesome.
Lowlines, one of our amazing community members, had great questions last week. Brought it again this week. Hopefully can bring some more next week.
That was cool, and I really dig that game idea. Actually, we've been flirting for a while with different kinds of simpler gameplay kind of styles, whether it's like a top-down game or a 2D side-scrolling game with any of our franchises we've played with these premises. And over, what tends to happen is whether we get into that or not, we just prioritize effort on our main line, and I don't know how to deal with that. I mean, the only thing I can think of, it's sort of a combination of money and talent, right? The number of people we have that are capable, and how much can we afford to spend in that direction. And I love that stuff though. I really wish we could do more of that kind of because there've been so many great ideas within Gearbox for that. But we'll see. We'll see what we get to. So hey, oh gosh,
it is almost time.
We are almost out
sir.
of time. So what before we sign off, is there anything else you'd like to share or chat about before we say goodbye for this episode of At Nerdvana Live?
Maybe I will tease something that we could talk about that somebody brought up in the Twitch chat that maybe we could discuss more in depth next week.
Okay.
And that is what our game of the year is.
Ooh. Oh, that's a great, since we just had the Game Awards.
Yep.
That's on everyone's mind. You know what? I will think about what my game of the year is. Mm-hmm. You do the same.
I will do the same.
And you do the same.
You.
And we can argue about what is. In fact, maybe we should talk about it's going to be award season from now until basically March of next year.
Yeah.
It always weirds me out when they do awards. Like, that's the thing I don't like about the Game Awards. They do it in December. And it seems like, the year isn't even over. Not everything's even launched.
Yeah.
And here we are. Yeah.
But that's a conversation we could dig into next week.
Yeah. But I don't know that if it's, I think that shows, for that show to succeed. Yeah, I'm sorry, we're getting it. Maybe we should get into the weeds. We'll get into that next week. Guys, it's been awesome spending some time with you. Thanks for everyone who called in. Thanks for everyone who's listening to the show or watching the show. If you want to talk to me, I think I will be on again next week. And do you want to do it again, or should we?
Sure.
Okay, great. And one thing we'll do is we'll start swapping me out and her out and getting some guests. Hosts and co-hosts in here, and doing that thing, and that'll be fun, and maybe talk to some different kinds of people at Gearbox Software as well as some of our friends throughout the industry. But in this context, I think we've had a good show.
I would say so as well. As always, if you want to talk to us and about the show even afterwards, please feel free to join the Discord and be a part of the community. We also have subforums up as a subset of the Gearbox forum, so you can discuss the show. And we're also going to be sharing more little clips, so in case you missed the whole show, we could give you a couple of pint-sized nuggets for you to digest throughout the week. And as always, if you missed any of this, you could catch the video on demand on Twitch and YouTube, as well as the podcast on iTunes and wherever fine podcasts are free.
Great. We'll see you next week.
See ya, guys.
Cheers.